Ures Yesha Divino, Ela Barata, Ela Assist, and Rahman Hashem, Adonai, Eloheinu Naz, Ema, Korov, and Afov, and Achnu, Kamnu, and Asebo, Adonai Shia, Hamelach Yaneinu, Yem Kareem. Okay, so we are here on page 93 in Kuntus, lessons in Kuntus Heichaltzu. And we're talking about, is describing two chsidim, two kinds of chsidim that are davening, and davening in a way where they're arousing their feelings and emotions, but there are two kind of general scenarios. One where a person meditates on such subjects that stimulate feelings of excitement and simcha, and one is when a person meditates on such subjects that stimulates feeling of being broken and humbled and so on. So first he starts off with the simcha. And he explains that the more a person thinks into the greatness of Hashem and the beauty and the incredible distance between us and Hashem and how infinite he is, and how beyond our understanding he is, these are feelings that make us see the greatness of Hashem, and that'll stimulate simcha. So, of course, there's so many things to think about, but one of them is about the creation of Yesh Me'ayin. Hashem creates Yesh Me'ayin, and Yesh Me'ayin is something which is absolutely a wonder. It's one of the biggest wonders that we can possibly think of when we talk about Hashem. In what way? So two things. First of all, Yesh Me'ayin is something which doesn't exist in the human experience, like we explained yesterday. Everything we talk about Hashem, that we say that Hashem knows everything. Knowing is something we can relate to. We know in a limited way. Hashem knows everything, infinite. He knows everything that's going on in the whole world at all times, by all people, by every single animal, every single insect, every single star, every single planet. So knowing is something we can relate to, but we just say by Hashem, it's on a greater scale, on a bigger scale. We talk about Chokhmah, we think of Hashem Chokhmah in a bigger scale. Talking about Hashem's Chesed, we know what Chesed is. And by Hashem, we know it's much more than anything we can imagine, but we have something sort of to compare it to. When it comes to Yesh Me'ayin, there's nothing in the human experience that we can even compare it to. So it's completely, as I say today, off the charts. Totally. There's nothing there to compare it to. Because everything that we do is Yesh Me'yesh. Well, let's use the words in the Maimer, it's Ila V'Ol. It's basically one thing that something which already existed, and there's something else that brings it into existence. The second reason why it's something which is so amazing, and it's something which inspires a person when he thinks of the greatness of Hashem, is because the creation of Yesh Me'ayin is something which in a way consists of two opposites. And it's almost impossible to understand how these two opposites can come together. What are the two opposites? So first, let's explain the difference between Yesh Me'ayin and Nil V'Ol. So yesterday, we focused on the fact that Yesh Me'ayin, why is it called Ayin? If Hashem is the one that creates the world, why is it called Ayin? Ayin means nothing or non-existent. And Yesh means exists. Yesh, something. Something out of nothing. How can we say Hashem is Ayin? So we explained yesterday, actually, that in this context, the word Ayin means that our kind of existence is Ayin. It does not exist at all in the spiritual realm. Or basically even more than that, finite does not exist in the realm of infinite. Not only doesn't exist, there's nothing there that it can even compare it to. There's nothing there. It's not like a seed that develops into a tree. When a seed develops into the tree, there's something in the seed already in existence, and that's the source of the tree. In fact, there are different things in the seed One of them is the source for the fruit, one is the source for the wood, one is the source for the leaves. It's all in the seed. But the same with the human seed. When a baby is born, in the cell there's already details, and this is the source for the hands and the feet and the eyes and the mouth and the nose and the teeth. Everything is in there, but it's in a hidden way, and then it comes out in an open way. It's there before in potential, and then it's revealed. Yesh me ayin means that no, what the yesh is ayin, totally non-existent there, and there's nothing there that is in any way even similar in any form or shape, not even one iota of a similarity to the yesh. There's not, so the yesh is non-existent in its source. When does it begin to exist? Only once Hashem creates it. So to a certain extent, the tree already began to exist inside the seed, or the baby began to exist within the mother's womb. But yesh doesn't exist in its source. It's a totally new creation. So that means that the distance between yesh me ayin, between the yesh and the ayin, is the ultimate distance. There's just no connection between them. This is something which exists, three-dimensional, glass, wood, metal, earth, air, fire, water. In the source, ayin, there's nothing there at all that's connected to this. Yesh me yesh, there's a connection. Yes, whatever is in the source is on a smaller scale. It's microscopic. It's even more than microscopic. It's a potential, but there's something already there. Yes.
What is it by introduced? Is this like by Baal Shem Tov? Or is this like a finish of like
it's already found even in Ramban and Chumash, the term yesh me'ayin. Yeah. What's Ilav O? Ilav O. So that's the first thing. So let's see the words inside again, what we said yesterday. I want to go back for a second to page 91. Let's do this again now. The third paragraph from the bottom. The Zehu HaHafresh. This is the difference between Ilav Olo, Lebri Yesh Me'ayin. This is the difference between the two. Ilav Olo, V'chinas Ashpah V'kiru. The way the Ila creates the Olo is with closeness. The closer it is, the more, in other words, the more there's a connection between the source, which is the creation, and the thing that's being created, the better the whole process will be. Sha'ilu mislabish b'ha'olu, the cause encloses itself or applies itself to the olu. The olu magish hasilosai, and the olu, whatever is that is the effect, feels and it's aware of its source. So we gave the example the other day of a teacher and a student. It's not yesh me'ayin. The wisdom that comes to the student's head is not new. It was already there before in the teacher's head. All the teacher did was transmit it to the student. And even if you would say that the teacher understands it so much deeper, so much more abstract, and the student explains it to him in a simple way, and that's almost like new. I'm not talking about a teacher that just says something to the student, whatever is in my head now is in your head. Even if it's more than that the teacher understands the concept on a very deep level, and they actually have to do somersaults to find a way that the child could relate to it on a childish level. And that way of understanding, in a way, is new. It's like yesh. It's a new thing. But it's not really new because it's all included in the deeper way of understanding it. So if you explain something to a child, and you explain it to them in a way that they could relate to, and you're not creating a new concept, it was already in the source. But you have to apply yourself. The more you apply yourself to the student and what his intellectual capacity is and what he could understand and what he can't understand, what words should I use, what language should I speak, and I apply myself to the student, the better the process will be. And the student has to be tuned in to receive from me. And the same thing with everything. We spoke about an artist. creating art. So the piece of art, the beautiful picture that now is on the canvas, was created by the artist, but it existed in potential in the mind of the artist. And it also existed in his hands, the ability to make the picture, the ability to make these movements with his hand, the brush. But the more he applies himself, and the closer it is, therefore he can do that. He has to take the brush, put it on the canvas, connect himself to the image that he wants to put on the canvas, and that's how it gets there. Mashenkim b'savas yesh me'ayin. How is yesh me'ayin different? Shesavas u'be'ein aroich. Being that the two things that are created here are incomparable to each other, the source and the creation are incomparable. There's nothing there there's no similarity there at all. There's nothing there you can say that there's even a resemblance of one to the other. It's ayin. In the source, it doesn't exist. In Cain, if it's so distant, like this is infinite and this is finite, it must be that the creating force has to conceal itself, hide itself from the creation, because it's infinite. And if the infinite source would be exposed, the finite couldn't exist, because in the realm of infinite, there's no such thing as finite. So that means it's an interesting thing. The source gets closer to the creation, whatever it's creating, and that's how it happens. Yesh mi'ayin, the source has to be removed from that thing that's being created, has to be hidden from it, and that's how it happens. And on the contrary, if it would be exposed, the creation could never happen. What's the question? Is it understood? I mean, it's abstract, I know. But again, because we don't have yesh mi'ayin, but that's point number one. What else is going on that's the exact opposite? But there's also another thing. This is a paradox here. The hechrech lema, we have to say, one of the biggest principles of the Baal Shem Tov, and one of the cornerstones of Chassidus, which is brought out and elaborated on in the second volume of Tanya, is the idea that Hashem creates the world every second, recreates the world every second, and if the world would not be created that next second, it would be non-existent. In other words, that the Dvar Havaya, the words of Hashem, and the energy of Hashem, which creates the universe, is constantly in the process of creation. If it would stop for a second, the world couldn't exist. By Dezel, b'Metzias Yesh. Page 93. If this godly force that creates the world Yesh Mi'ayin would be removed even for 1 second, it would be totally non-existent. What's the basis for that? Anyone could explain it? If someone would ask you, how do you explain it logically? Normally, we say the opposite, that if a person builds a house and someone would tell you, this is an excellent, contract that he builds beautiful, beautiful homes. There's only one condition. He has to stand there all the time and hold the walls up. If he walks away for a second, everything is going to collapse. And by Hashem, we say, this is the greatness of creation, that if he stops for a second, the whole universe would collapse. What's so great about that? So what's the explanation? Why does this show greatness, and why is it necessary? This we also had in the first manual that we learned at the beginning of the year. But how would anyone want to make an attempt to explain it? What?
Closeness with us. Have a closeness with us.
That's a reason to say Hashem did it for that purpose. But why isn't that the process of Yesh Mi'ayin warrants that there's no way that the creation can exist even for a second without the source?
Because your muscle will decline paper in the wind, like it's not just like combustion.
Right. I gave another muscle. No, what I said then was that we find certain things in nature that they don't, the nature is different. But if you sort of force, for example, people teach animals to do things you would never imagine an animal can do. Usually what they do is they take this animal at a very young age and they train it to do something. So they're doing it for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, who knows how many years, and then eventually it becomes what we call second nature. There's certain things, no matter how much you do it and repeat it, it'll never become second nature. Right? I gave you the mushroom. If you take a doll and you walk with it for 100 hours, theoretically, hypothetically, for 1,000 hours, for 613,000 hours, and the doll, and you walk with it, and you walk with it, and you walk with it, will it continue to walk once you let go, at least for a few minutes? No. The second you let go, even if you would walk with it for 10,000 years, theoretically, and you let go, it'll the same that. Why doesn't it develop the ability to walk independently? And the answer is all those things that you could change the nature, they must have that second nature in them in potential. And what you're doing is you're bringing out the potential. It takes a long time to do it, but eventually you're bringing out the potential that's there, and therefore they can go on independently. A doll does not have something which is daimon, an inanimate object, does not have the potential to move on its own. So no matter how many times I'll throw the rock, no matter how many times I'll walk the doll, no matter how many times I'll move the table, it's not going to walk on its own because it doesn't have it in potential. Yesh Mi'ayim means Hashem creates something which did not exist before in potential. Not only it wasn't there, it wasn't even in the source. It wasn't even there in some sort of microscopic way. It wasn't there in any kind of subtle, abstract potential.
The idea of the paint, what's that? Like where the painter has the idea and depending on how close and how the brush works, then he can make this grand painting. What would that be?
That's the overall. Because again, the image was already in my head. Yeah.
Much with the doll, it's because the doll is bigger. But if you teach like a real baby how to walk, then they're gonna learn how to walk.
Why? Because they have that potential.
The Abraham constantly creating the world and constantly creating us. Then like without him, we're just like the doll does not walk.
More than that, because with the doll, we don't create the doll, we're just walking the doll. With Hashem is creating the doll. So the very existence of the Gashmizik world would never continue to exist even for a second without Hashem, because it's Yesh Mi'ayin. There's no potential there or in other cases, all we're doing is sort of triggering. Even an example, so Hasidus sometimes brings the example of Eisha Chalomish, which means a flintstone. You take a rock, you strike it with metal, and a spark comes out. Is there fire in the rock before? Like, is the rock hot? No. Is there a little tiny, teensy, weensy, beansy little flame inside the rock? No. Not only that, if you take this rock and you allow it to soak in water for 1,000 years, and you take it out and you strike it, it'll come out again. So what does it mean? So where's the fire coming from? The answer is there must be a potential in the rock for fire and sparks to come out. Because if I strike the rock, I won't have rubber coming out. I won't have glass coming out. I won't have a potato coming out. I'll only have fire coming out, which means it's already programmed in some way or another that if I strike it, fire will come out. But once I strike it and the spark comes out, I can catch it and allow the fire to continue independently. Why? Because it already existed before in some potential way. With Hashem, it's not even that kind of, it is just no potential. It's not in there. Hashem is abstract. The fact that he could create everything is because he's absolutely infinite, but not that fire, glass, earth, water, or any element or any substance existed in any kind of potential way. That's the definition of Yesh Me'ayin. So therefore, Hashem has to be there every second. So here's the paradox. On one hand, we say that Ilav Olo, the creative force, and whatever's being created have to be close to each other. But one could later exist independently. Yesh Mi'ayin, we say the only way to create is by distancing itself, hiding itself, concealing itself. But at the same time, it couldn't exist for a second without the source. And the more you think of it, of the two things, you realize that how could the two things exist in the same process? In the two opposite directions. One is you have to be as close as possible, and the other one is you have to be as far as possible at the same time. How's that possible?
Why is the other one involved?
Because Hashem has to be totally concealed. If he would be revealed, the Gashmis couldn't exist. Because Gashmis is finite, Hashem is infinite. In the realm of infinite, finite can exist. So the realm of infinite has to sort of conceal itself and allow space for something finite. If it would open up, there's no space for finite. It's going to be a miracle. It'll be the miracle of all miracles. It's not going to be Teva, it's going to be a miracle. But I just, what?
You're asking how you find all of this at the same time?
No. The question is, in Yesh Me'ayin itself, how could the two parts of the process exist at the same time? One condition, it's a criteria. Ayin creates Yesh, it has to conceal itself. The second thing is, the Yesh can't exist a second without the Ayin. In other words, one is the absolute distance, and the other one is the absolute closeness. And that's a contradiction. It's like saying, in order for this to happen, these two things have to be as close as possible. In order for this to happen, they have to be as far away from each other as possible.
Yes.
The ayin has to conceal itself from the yesh.
The yesh can't exist a second without the ayin.
Right. That means they have to be as close as possible. The ayin has to be inside every fiber of my being has the ayin in it. Otherwise, it couldn't exist. Every part of me. And at the same time, the ayin has to be as far away from me as possible, because otherwise I couldn't exist.
It's not like the rock looking at the stone, like just like looking at the stone and bringing it out, or no, that makes sense.
No, because hitting with the stone is yesh meyesh. The source, the original fire, is very abstract. It's a potential. You can't even compare it to fire that you draw out of a hot coal. In a hot coal, there's also fire potential, but over there, the coal is already hot. If you pour water on it, it'll be extinguished. With the rock, the potential is much more abstract. You can't extinguish it. And you touch it, there's no heat, there's no fire, but there's definitely a potential for fire. And therefore, the fire that's created can exist independently, but not by Yesh Me'ayin. The Maimarim that talk about these two subjects at length and elaborate on it. So this chassid who's davening, that's where he's going. He thinks about this point, thinks about all the details. And the more he thinks about it, the more he's amazed and fascinated by the amazing way that Hashem created the world. Right? I mean, in Tanya itself, Al Rebbe doesn't talk about dolls, doesn't talk about paper in a wind. He does talk about a piece of gold or silver that you form it into a vessel. Let's say you take silver and you make a menorah out of it. In that case, once you do that, you can walk away, and whatever I've created could remain in existence independently. Why? Even though the menorah is new. The silver existed before, but the menorah is new. So how come when I walk away, it doesn't just go back to what it was before, a chunk of silver? And the answer is because it's not totally new. The potential for the silver to be formed as a menorah, and a kiddush cup, as a spoon, as a fork, as a plate, as anything, was already there. So what I'm really doing is just developing something from its potential state to its actual state. Yesh Me'ayin is not even there in a potential state. Okay, let's read inside. Again, let me go back to the bottom of 92. We also must say, the godly divine force, a mahaba that's creating the world, it's constantly inside the creation. By yesh, and only by that can it exist as a yesh. If that divine force would be taken away, even for a moment, why is it that if I stand in front of a mirror and then I walk away, there's nothing there? Most things, if I put down, take a pen and write something down, even if I erase it, there's something left. If I put down food on the table or on a plate and then I take it away, there's something left that shows that there was food here before. If I burn something, there's ashes. Everything in the world, if you take it away, you destroy it, usually there's something left. If a person's image is in the mirror and you walk away, is there anything left, like any smudges on the mirror left because I was there a moment ago? Totally gone. Why? And the answer is because there was nothing there in the first place. It was me. And it was just a reflection of me. It's not something that existed independently. And therefore, the moment I walk away, there's nothing there. And that's how the world is nothing but a reflection, manifestation of Hashem. Hashem created us in a way that we have our own identity, but all that is from Hashem himself. But it's Yesh Me'ayin. What? Right. Yeah, that's the closeness. That it's nothing else but Hashem, and therefore it can't exist without Hashem. So the truth is, this is a paradox, and it's something which only, that's why we don't have it in the human existence. It can be. It's something which is only infinite can do that. Hashem, who's infinite, is not limited. He can do these two things together. By days that the imhoy mistalik memeno chas v'sholem, hoy nasa ayin beves mamish. Why? Kimitzias hayesh u'davar chodesh. Because when Hashem creates yesh, that's something which is called, it's new, it's absolutely new. Not new like the picture on the canvas, or not new like the logic that the child has or the student has. It's mamish new, it's absolutely new. The chodesh chachos, anything which is absolutely new, the creating force that creates this new thing has to be there constantly. And if it's not there, even for a moment, it will become non-existent. If not, that newness will be gone. In that sense, it's not like Ilav Oru. Let's take an example, intellect and emotion. The other day, we said this is one of the examples of Ilav Oru. Intellect creates and produces emotion. If I think about something in a certain way, I think how profitable this is, I have a desire for it. If I think how dangerous something is, I'm afraid of it. If I think how amazing this is, I'm attracted to it. I think how this person is an amazing person, I feel like I'm excited about this person, I love this person. Whatever I think about and the value that I see, that's going to have an effect on my emotion. So the intellect is called the ilo, the source, and the emotion is the olum, the product. So is it possible that I was thinking about something and that created and stimulated a certain feeling, but after a while, even after I don't exactly remember what was it logically that prompted me and stimulated within me this feeling, I still could remain with the feeling. Because the midah, in essence, is not a new creation. I mean, this is not a pleasant example, but I once had a friend that I knew for many, many years. I went to every single simcha that he had. And then one day I went to a simcha, and I see someone sitting there at the head table, and that person resembles his father very much. I never saw this person ever. So I asked him, Who's this person? He looks so similar to your father. He said, my uncle, my father's brother. Really? I said, I never saw him all these years. Where does he live? Overseas? No, he lives not far. Really? So he said, so I said, how come I never saw him? Oh, they were in a fight with each other. They weren't speaking to each other. They said, so what happened? They can't remember why they got into a fight. So eventually, now something came up. A simcha said it came to the fight. Basically, it doesn't have to be something so extreme, but it's possible a person gets excited about something, and as a result of that, invest themselves in doing something. And at a later point, I'm not necessarily thinking about what was it logically that stimulated that excitement, but I'm left with the excitement, and I'm left with the feeling, whether it's fear, whether it's excitement, whether it's love, whether it's something else. I'm left with the feeling. How could the feeling exist independently? Because it's iluvolos, not yesh me'ayin. In other words, in a sense, the emotion has a life of its own. But the way the emotion is developed is first, it's found in the mind, and then from the mind, it develops in the heart. So being that it existed before, therefore, efsher liyez hamida gam kishish kechatam. But the truth of the matter is that even though I don't feel it, but subconsciously the reason is still there somewhere, and that's why I have that emotion. This is explained in another place. But how could the emotion exist if I consciously didn't remember the reason, or I'm not aware of the reason? The answer is because the emotions are not a new creation. Unlike yesh me'ayin, the issue is chachus, because it's something which is absolutely new, not just a new entity, relatively new. It's absolutely new. The creating force that creates this new thing is to be all the time. Page 95. Now we conclude. So what's the result of all this? There are two things that are existing at the same time. On one hand, there's a tremendous gap. This is infinite and this is finite. And like I said, there's no bridge between infinite and finite. There could be a bridge between the biggest finite and the smallest finite, but there can't be a bridge between infinite and finite. Why? It's very simple. What is a bridge? What is a bridge between Brooklyn and Manhattan? It means there's one part of the bridge that's in Brooklyn, there's another part of the bridge that's in Manhattan, and that makes it possible to go across from here to there. There's one part of a person that's a mediator, is also a bridge between two people, two sides that are having a conflict, and someone comes in as a third party to mediate. Same thing, he must have a relationship with one side, and he has also some relationship with the other side. Therefore, he can be in the middle and bring the two together. But if I would have a relationship only with one side, I can't be a mediator. So to bridge a gap means that you have to have some similarity and some connection to side A, and some similarity and some connection to side B. There's no bridge that could be a bridge between infinite and finite. Is it finite? Then it's on one side. If it's infinite, it's on the other side. I don't know if you ever learned about this, but in the times of Gemara, when the great Tanoim, these were giants, intellectual giants, spiritual giants, when they would teach, they didn't teach directly to the students. They would say there was another sage that he would give over to the students what the teacher just said and explain it to them. Why do we need another sage? Because the original sage was so deep, they wouldn't get it. So we had to have this. So who's this person? He's on the level of the people? No way, then he's just like everybody else. If he's on the level of the sage, then they can't get it from him either because of the level of the sage. So it says that he was not as great as the sage, but much smarter than the rest of the people. So he could be that bridge between the two. But if it's infinite and finite, how can there be a bridge? So the gap is an absolute gap. And at the same time, the godly force is in it, every second and gives it life. Like it says, your words are constantly in the Shemayim. And the Kudus Inyan is, and the real depth of this is, Yesh Me'ayin, Mechayiv Shneim. That the creation of Yesh Me'ayin, it necessitates both things. It sort of warrants that both things have to happen. They have to be as close as possible and as far as possible at the same time. And that's the part that's inconceivable. The next time you daven, this is what you'll be thinking about. Yeah. Yeah. I'm saying this is how a chassid would daven. He would say the words in davening. And let's say, I'm going to give an example. You come to this person, and you think about this idea, and think about how amazing Hashem is. And if he was a refined person, and a person that his heart and his mind were in sync, then he's going to sense in his heart a feeling of excitement and joy that I have a connection to Hashem, who is so amazing. That's all. That's what's going to happen. That'll lead to simcha. And then he's going to say another thing that I could meditate on, which is the next paragraph. He's giving another example of something to think about, that this would also create simcha. And then later, he'll go into the other scenario of a person who meditates on a different subject completely, and that causes and develops the feeling of merirus. And ultimately, the reason why he's bringing both things here, tuchsidim, that in a way they're on a very high level, they create in their hearts a feeling for Hashem, a real sensation of love or joy or brokenness or humility, whatever it is going to be, but it's a real strong feeling for Hashem. And yet at the same time, they have to be careful and cautious not to have the sin in them. Yeah.
So when you get problems and he's thinking about how much he loves Hashem, you're saying that's how the a bridge.
That's not how it's bridged. The purpose when he's davening and thinking about it, that's how he gets excited with simcha about Hashem. The more you recognize the greatness of Hashem, the more you're excited. A mother who loves her child and sees that this child is an amazing child and has tremendous good talents and good, the more she recognizes how great he is, the more excited she is that this is my child. Or the reverse. If someone recognizes the greatness of their parents or grandparents, the more they know about it, the more excited they are.
Then it's all through into that.
What?
And then it's all through into that, or it's like bringing, or it's drawing out that potential already. Like every year loves Hashem, but you just need more, like
this stimulates more excitement. So let me tell you about the new Seder that's going to be. Baruch Hashem, Mrs. Nemni is coming back. And she's going to be teaching Mashiach L'Gula. She was supposed to come tomorrow. She will come tomorrow, Mr. Hashem. Rabbi Majeski was supposed to come today, so he didn't feel well. So I'm filling in. I thought that he's going to teach halacha today, but I got a phone call this morning. So I will teach something about Mashiach L'Gula now. And
we have 3 Mashiach and regular classes.
Oh, what?
We have 3.
We'll have 3 this week, so Mashiach has to come for sure. If someone could do me a favor, and we'll do this a little bit later. I mean, we'll be up to this a little later. Just to give this to Devorah Namda. Ask you to make how many copies? 10 copies, back to back. Yeah. What?
So what did we're gonna see we actually
I think it has to do with the personality. Some people are more stimulated. Some people are more stimulated by the other feeling. Yeah. Oh, here's the one. But the other feeling is not, we're going to get this, it's not chas v'shalom sadness, that's not that, something different.